morning, and welcome back to another Sunday morning with the Blerd Church of Anime. I'm your preacher, your teacher, your cult leader, some may say. I don't know, whatever you want to call me, the messenger for today. I am Black Star, here to hit you up with another hopefully inspiring message based on anime and manga. Anything blerdy and nerdy, of course. Y'all, it is June, which means it is Pride Month. Yes, yes, yes. We celebrate Pride over here for all of queer folk, our LGBTQIA plus, all the folk, all the rainbows, all the things. We're here at the Blerdy Church of Anime for you. Um, and if that's not your jam, then I would say maybe this ain't the community for you. But if you are here to celebrate our queer folk, then stay tuned for June because I got stuff coming for y'all. Ready. Yes. So for me, it has been a oof of a week. It's been busy. It's been so freaking busy. I think my social battery is super low and I still got tons of things to do today. But you know, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. I'm gonna have a very busy week next week, or this week coming up, I should say. I'm hoping. I don't think I have any weekends in June where I probably won't have a low social battery. And this is coming from an extrovert who likes people. So just imagine how busy that may be for some of y'all. But it is what it is. I'm not anti it. I'm just preparing myself for it. That's all I can say. Um, I hope y'all are having a good week. I hope for those who have Pride events going on at the beginning of June or towards later June that you are going and engaging and seeing people and finding folk who celebrate you as you are. If you are an ally, I hope you are out here supporting your vote and being vocal about supporting people because especially here in America. I'm saying this is Pride Month because this is American US kind of thing. It's getting a little dangerous here in the US, even for some of the protected classes. So I'm just putting that out there. And I have to put down that I'm saying this from an American context because I want to talk about queerness in anime this month. And first off, I gotta give anime its props, at least for me as a millennial growing up. Like a lot of queer representation. The first place I saw it was probably anime. I think at some point I'm gonna talk about my favorite by disaster. Guess in the comments who you think my first and favorite by disaster, who I will always love, is. I'll let you know this month if you're right or wrong. And even though back then I didn't even realize that was a by disaster happening, I got older, like, oh, kind of like revelations happened. But even though Japan is super conservative and queerness, especially gay men, are not always are oftentimes very frowned upon, especially in their older generations, which still run the country. There's still, especially in the less urban areas. I could be talking about anime showing a lot of queer things and a lot of different types of its media, but doesn't mean that it is still socially super acceptable for people, and that there's not like a lot of harm and danger that comes from people expressing themselves in different ways. Um, and that is something that has to be true up front. Like, just because even though they get some representation, that representation doesn't mean it's acceptable and then easy for people to live those type of lifestyles in those ways. Same here in America, although gay representation in media has definitely gone up a lot, especially in the late 2010s and now, doesn't mean it's still safe for a lot of people to be able to live their truths or be able to be who they want to be, especially when it comes to interpersonal relationships, whether it be like your family, your friends in school, your job, employment. There's still so many things that are structurally there that keep our queer folk from being able to just live their lives and live good lives with that. So, but yeah, so even though I am, really harping on animes that kind of like push the envelope or have conversations about this. I am saying that with the caveat that I know it is not a magical land over in Japan where you can be who you want to be and there be no consequences. That is not true, unfortunately. Um, so this week I wanted to start with a show that I had to do a little bit of digging on, like to make sure I'm being like culturally sensitive about, and also talking about experiences that are a little bit more gray area. And the anime I want to talk about today is Senpai is in Otokonoko. Otokonoko. A lot of O's in that one. Um, it's an anime. It started off as a webtoon and a manga series. Eventually really popular in like 2020, 2021. A couple of years ago, it got an anime. Oh, season one of the anime. I think the season two was announced, or there's like a movie on Crunchyroll. I remember watching it. I was like, oh, I'm into this because I love a cross dressing anime. I love it when a girl is cross dressing as a guy, and then the guy, like, she's in the all boys school or doing something, and the guys fall in love with her. Those are manga stories I always eat up. I love when a guy cross dresses as a girl, um, for whatever reasons. And then I started like that word though was something I wasn't super familiar with, otokonoko. And so I dig a little deeper. And I do want to say that otokonoko is kind of like a phrase playing off, like loosely translated because not everything is directly translated. It is boy daughter of that nature. Something it's more like male daughter or male girl. So it's giving you the idea of a cross-dressing guy who looks like a girl. If you're an older millennial like I am, you may remember the 4chans and all the "it's a trap" means. This is the genre of anime they're normally talking about. I remember Bridget from Guilty Gear was always a big one, a cute young female feminine looking character, and then it's like, oh, reveal, it's actually a dude. Don't you feel some way about that? um I think it's a trap became very dangerous, especially as we try to push past those other 2000s of like trans identity and like how a lot of our trans, especially trans sisters, trans women are seen as traps and are unduly harmed by it and by people who feel that they were tricked, which is a whole nother conversation, which we can have. We can have that conversation. But what I liked about Otokononoko is that it's not always directly about cross dressing and it's not also directly about being trans. So, how to put it this way? And I think that was what I really like about this particular anime that made me start saying, oh, we're getting to the fuzzy area of gender and expression. Because I think one thing that is really sometimes hard for people who are not in the rainbow around people who don't get to talk and like really empathize with folk who are different from them, especially when it comes to gender queerness, is that it's like the whole point of it is that it's not binary. And so some people think, oh, drag queens, they're trans. We're like, no, some drag queens are trans because they are being able to express themselves in their dress and their appearance and the gender they both perform. And it's not to say performance. Well, there is some drag that is just cross dressing, it is a performance. Doesn't mean that person identifies as the gender that they perform as. And that has broken some brains. You get into like drag lore, especially drag queen lore, like there are sometimes separate pageants for drag that is just performance based. So men dress cross dressing as women versus drag pageants and things that are for trans women. So women who want to be trans women who are like it's not just a performance, although they are performing, they do like lip syncing and stuff, but like they live their lives as women. Then it goes to like just the simple cross dressing, um, which I think there are some people who uh, like the aesthetic of the other gender. They may be non-binary, and instead of being androgynous, they may like want to present as a certain gender, whether it be male, femme, masculine, all that kind of stuff. And does it mean again that they're trans? Also, there also might be some trans people who don't want to fit directly into that binary. It is again a spectrum, is a lot of gray area. And I think watching Senpai is in Otokonoko was really good for me to be like, oh, I think I'm seeing some of this in between. Because as someone who didn't read the manga and like I go and get so much from each episode of the anime, it's really interesting to kind of see where the mindset is and me trying to place a trans identity on somebody where I was like, I'm not quite sure that is what's happening in this character. But let's back it up. What is Senpai is in Otokonoko. So it is the story of really just three main characters that we're gonna get into. First is Makoto. Makoto is a second year. Um, they are when you first meet them, they are the senpai. Pretty much. Makoto is the senpai. And the second character, Saki, is a first year student, and she sees her senpai and her soifuki like dress, and she falls in love with her. And Saki does what Saki does best, being this bright, energetic girl. And she goes and she confesses to her senpai, like, "Oh my God, senpai, you're so pretty. I love you. Can we please like date?" And Makoto is taken aback because Makoto's like, are you sure? It's like, oh my God, yes, I love you. And Makoto's like, actually, I'm a guy. And Saki's like, bet. It's I get a male and a female version of you. I can get the film and the mask. Let's go. Saki's a girl of my own heart. I'm not gonna even lie, y'all. When Saki was like, what? There's two versions? I say, oh, the greediness. Okay, not a bad disaster, by true to herself. That really throws off Makoto because this is not what he was expecting. So Makoto still uses male pronouns, but lives as a girl at school. It was a little bit difficult, I think, like their first year. I'm gonna use they pronouns because this since it's like my default. Well, Makoto's first year, I think people found out Makoto was a guy, and then it kind of made things really weird. But like the first year, now that they're a second year, the first years don't know, and so Makoto's able to just like exist in this female body or just this female gender presentation that he is doing. And so, they'll use his female pronouns around school or whatever. People treat them as a girl, and that is what Makoto wants. Or Makoto is trying to figure out if that is what they want, which I think is a very key distinction here. Is there is the initial boy likes cute things, boy wants to look cute, boy cross dresses as a cute person, versus boy being like, is this how I want to live? Do I feel like I'm a girl? And that is, I think, a little bit of a tension that is there, or kind of expressed, not explicitly, in the anime. So again, I don't want to completely say Makoto is trans because that is not how he identifies. The third person in here is Ryuji, who is Makoto's childhood best friend. I think they've been together since kindergarten, and he is super, super protective of Makoto because of the hardships Makoto has gone through as someone who cross dresses. Essentially, it's people. The easiest way to say is that Makoto cross dresses, and has seen the bullying, has seen like what this does for Makoto, and how happy being able to look like and dress like and live life as a girl has been to him. And then of course there's a romance anime, so Ryoji is also dealing with his own feelings towards Makoto and trying to figure like, is this gonna ruin their friendship? Do I really like them like that? Wait, I thought it was, am I straight because I like her as a girl? But like the whole panic that I typically love in all cross dressing manga that I typically read. Ryoji is the character I'm here for, but I also love that Saki is definitely here to do both. Makoto, though, doesn't really understand what love and the view of love is and falling in love. So completely doesn't see Ryuji's panic happening and is suspicious of Saki. And Saki's just like, well, can we just be friends and just see what happens? And you kind of watch that relationship grows. You also learn a lot more about Saki and why she's able to confess her love so unabashedly to Makoto. This is like a slight spoiler. I'm not going to spoil too much, but like Saki herself has some family issues where she oftentimes feel lonely and want something to just be hers, whether it's a friend, a lover, whatnot. And I think she projects that onto it. So I think it's very interesting watching all these character dynamics of like, what does it mean to be loved or to be in love, playing with the gender of it all. And also I like the Japanese culture conversation is happening around like classmates that are okay with Makoto and like doesn't ostracize him for being Otokonoko versus those that did ostracize, and then people trying to figure out like where they want to be in relationship for something that again is not completely socially acceptable but is becoming less of a taboo. So we're like in this, like the fact that the school knows that Makoto is male and lets him dress in the women's uniform, has a special place for him to be able to change in the morning. Because another like wrinkle in this is that Makoto hides all of this from his mother. His mother is against boys liking cute things. She is like, you need to be a rough and tough boy. And Makoto doesn't want to cause her distress. So he's doing all of this like undercover with his father's approval. His father, I think, helped set up this them being able to go to the school a little bit further away, but trying very, very hard to keep a low profile in front of his mother about these things. And that's also a really interesting relationship to watch throughout the show. So I'm not going to give away all the spoilers, but it's a really interesting premise. And what I like about it and why I like about this in particular to other shows is one is that there's a focus. uh, Makoto's understanding of self, of gender, of who he wants to be right now and in the future, and who he's been in the past, brings up a conversation. I think a lot of people don't don't really talk about when it comes to cross-dressing or trans identity or just gender fluidity in a lot of spaces. A lot of times we meet characters in anime if they are gender fluid or if they cross as a different gender or are trans, and it's like it's been set, and we don't get that like coming of age. How do I feel about this? How where do I pull back because of disapproval? Where do I push forward? And how the people around me make me feel like this is something I can or cannot do. I think it's a very important lesson that we're learning through the eyes of Makoto and the protectiveness of Ryuji and then Saki being kind of like trying to be a safe space for them as well. Um Although Saki still has like her own stuff to really do. And even the manga artist writer Palm, because that is not their identity, they don't they they struggle really, really hard with, not wanting to write a series that is not based off their own lived experience because this could get very fraught. You're taking these characters and these situations, and if you do research, it's kind of sometimes really hard to write introspective things based off of what's happening if it's not something that you intimately know. And so they kind of set it up with the characters and trying to see where they go into the world. Like they didn't really have a clear ending of what they wanted to do with this love story, which I can kind of get. I do think it's really important though for us to, even though it's not the writer's lived experience, I still personally think it was done fairly well. And a lot of the conversation that needs to be had is everything's not always in a neat box. Like if you read some of the reviews, all people like, oh, you handle these situations with like humor and some seriousness. Like they like that like there's a conversation that gets started. But a lot of places instantly label Makoto as trans or instantly label Makoto as a crossdresser. And like, yes, Makoto is cross dressing, identifies as male, but loves the female aesthetic on them. And it again, it's just it's not as cut and dry as just a cross dresser. So I think again, we've had a lot of characters who are cross dressers. There's whole genres of this from characters. Like I mentioned Bridget before, but we don't get a lot of like introspective in Bridget's life, especially in Guilty Gear. But like I'm trying to think of it. Ranma uses it as like a couple of characters like that as comedy because Ranma half is a comedy. Like it is what it is, you know? We're not trying to do it. I like another one is Zombieland Saga. If you've seen that, Lily um lives her life as a young girl, although she was born male, which they don't go really deeply into it, but it is hinted at, and especially in the way that she dies to become a zombie, of course. We get a lot of characters, um, especially in the older, and I want to say older, I'm like in the 2000s, where like again they present it as like, look at this female character. Just kidding, they're actually male. Weird. Like, what is the character in Fushigi? Um, Noriko. I think Noriko is one of the first characters. I was like, oh, that's weird. And me saying weird is like, again, not my evolved self to this point, and understanding gender and gender identity versus sex and all that good jazz. But, because Noriko's in love with the prince and da 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 da, so lives her life as a woman. Is Noriko trans versus just a crossdresser? I think in the late 90s or 2000s, creator wasn't thinking that deeply into it, unfortunately. There's ton. I think you may have seen tons of characters throughout different animes that have that trope because, again, it has become an anime trope or manga trope. It is a genre of and anime characters. But I think instead of using these side characters as gags or, you know, the possible even evil third wheel in a relationship or whatever. Senpai is an Otokonoko is an expression of trying to find oneself within a hostile environment and trying to find oneself in a hostile environment before you can even consider love. And I think that's what I love the most about it is that it would have been super easy for our main character, for Makoto, to be like, yeah, Saki, let's go. Someone who loves both sides of me. Yes, but they're like, I have to first see who I am and be able to like the things that I like and decide that I do love myself and love who I'm becoming before I can really say that I even like you. And that is actually really deep and cool growth. Um, I think a very interesting study of someone playing with gender. Okay, yeah, that's a full sentence. That's just something very interesting as someone playing with gender. And again, I love gender swap stuff all the time. Like, I don't know if I'm actually gonna do a sermon on what is it, my date with oh my gosh, what is the name of that anime? It was on High Dive. You know what, actually, I may actually do that for my High Dive one this month. It's called How I Attended an All Guy Mixer. That I might have to talk about this one. But yeah, so I might have to edit a lot of this out because we're just dragging. But what I want to say is Senpai is an Otokonoko is a really good anime, very sweet, coming of age, romantic anime where we look at gender as something that is not just bent, but a fluid look into how being true to yourself, whether you are trans or someone who just likes the aesthetic, cross dressing, whatever it is, still can be scary, can still find love and relationship and friendship, and can still, find ways that every little thing can be like a very hard dig into your life and who you are. And I love that they take this seriously. I love that it's not very heavy-handed for folk who are kind of like, I don't know, getting into deep. Like again, a lot of the deeper moments are set up by lighter moments, and you see a lot of things going into each character's life. So it's not just the gender expression. It's not just Motoko's thoughts. There's a lot going on with Ryuji, a lot going on with Saki as well. And like I think the story is refreshing. Um, so yeah, I say check it out. I hope you like it. It's the beginning of our Pride Month, talking about all the things in June. Everything queer. And if you're like, I don't want to hear about these type of animes, I'm not gonna watch it. Okay, so that's to be you. You can skip these sermons this month, but I wish you would kind of like give it a chance. Get a chance to like learn something new about somebody. I think you can learn a lot about people's experiences through fiction. A lot of people became okay with gay people because of Ellen, the show, and Will and Grace. um, People saw a gay guy on television making jokes every week who wasn't like in real life, but like a gay character in Will and Grace, and people learned to be okay with gay people, even though they're probably gay folk in their lives. They probably didn't know because they were unsafe. So again, I do think being able to watch very not exploitative, if possible, media about different areas of LGBTQIA plus groups will be helpful. I was just seeing like characters, and again, like I said, I watched a lot of stuff when I was younger and in teens, and then now that I'm older, I'm like, oh, but like I related to a lot of different folk, and now it just makes so much more sense in my life, and it is what it is. But I do think like being able to, especially if you love anime, you love the characterization of people in anime. This is a really good one to start thinking about folk who don't subscribe to regular gender norms and how they see themselves. There you go. That is the most simple way I could put it. All right, y'all. That's all I have to say. Till the next one, I will see you. Bye. The Blerd Church of Anime podcast is produced by Black Star, aka Lauren Tillman, written by Lauren Tillman, and hosted by Lauren Tillman. Music created by EL47.